Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1970s.
I do not belong on this mission, and I want to return to Earth.
This is episode 187, recorded April 12th, 2023.
Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, I am your host, Doc Rotten, and this podcast is about horror films released between 1970 and 1979. Each episode, my co-hosts Jeff Mohr, Chad Hunt, Bill Mulligan, and myself will tackle another classic or not-so-classic film from this wondrous, groovy, gory, influential decade. With me this week are my co-hosts, starting off with the one and only Jeff Mohr. Let's welcome him. Hi-lo. Hi-lo. How you like that? Hello, Jeff.
Hey. Hello, Doc. And who would have thought I could be completely full of gas and still be alive?
Being full of gas is so painful.
Yeah. And
let's bring the podcast to a complete stop. All right. Also joining tonight is Bill Mulligan, writer, director, special effects guru, an all-around nice guy, and he is now a published author. Congratulations,
Yay.
Bill.
Thank you. Next time we do a podcast, I will actually have a book, a cover in my hand. Eventually, you'll tell me to put it the hell away, knock it off, stop showing.
Then we won't be good enough for you.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
I'll have a crushed velvet jacket and a pipe. I'll look like F. Yeah, as a published author.
Exactly. Also joining us tonight, let's welcome Chad Hunt, comic book artist and co-host of Decades of Horror, the classic era and the 80s. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, Doc. Are we having chicken or ham tonight?
We're going to ham it up with a lot of chicken.
Okay. Chicken. I'm tired of chicken.
It's ham. We are going to review Dark Star tonight. This is, I'm correct, right? This is John Carpenter's first film.
Mm-hmm.
correct.
I'm also correct that this was like their college film and got picked up. Is that right? Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll have a lot to say about that. But of course, John Carpenter is a huge influence on the horror genre. If you don't know who John Carpenter is, stick with us. You'll find out by the end of the show. But what we're going to do tonight, we're going to give you our first impressions, and then we'll chat about the film, and then we'll wrap things up with some feedback, listener feedback. We got a lot tonight, right, Jeff?
Yes, we do.
And of course, we'll share what we're going to do on the next episode. So you want to stick around for all that. Let's do the card first, and then we'll dive into our first impressions. It is Dark Star, 1974, directed by John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon. Cast includes Dan O'Bannon, Brian Narell, Cal. Not the one to call him Carl, but it's Cal Kunaholm.
Sounds right.
Okay. And Andre, just call him Dre. I like that. Dre Patich, Nick Castle, Barbara Cookie Knapp. Of course, Dan O'Bannon is another name that you might recognize from the horror genre. We'll talk about him later. The production company is Jack H. Harris Enterprises. The film location was Los Angeles. Filming dates were between 1970 and 1972, and then again in 73. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Bill? Release date is March 30th, 1974, and that was at Film X US. Then in 75, it hit LA, and then again in 75, I guess twice, once on the 15th, one on the 17th.
A premiere on the 15th in LA.
There you go. The budget was $60,000, and it brought back $500,000. Good for them. Synopsis is a group of scientists whose mission is to destroy unstable planets is 20 years into their mission when they have to battle their alien mascot that resembles a beach ball, as well as sensitive and intelligent bombing device that starts to question the meaning of existence. Oh my. We'll just call him Hal. All right, let's get into this. That's a joke. Let's get into this. Let's find out what we thought. Who picked this? Who picked it?
I think me.
Chad? Yeah.
Thank
you, sir. Yeah. Why don't we start off with you? What was your first impression of Dark Star? And even more importantly, when did you first see it?
I first saw it yesterday.
Yes.
Whoa, really?
Do you guys remember Pee-wee's Big Adventure, right?
Oh, yeah.
You remember when, I've used this analogy before, remember when he's saving all the pets from the pet the fire in the pet store, and he kept going by the snakes, going,
Yeah.
and he saved them for last. That's how I felt about Dark Star.
Ah!
I just I've never seen it, but it did nothing for me as far as after I've seen The Thing and Prince of Darkness and all these other ones. I just let it sit on the rental shelf. I've never. It looked cheap, and I read about it being a college movie, and I just was not interested in it at all. And then I was having a discussion with someone about John Carpenter, and they asked if I'd ever seen Dark Star, and I said no, and they said, then you're not a true John Carpenter.
Ooh, shots fired.
fan. So I said, well, I'll show you. I'll pick it for the next podcast. And boy, I have never felt so right about myself in passing it up on the rental shelf. It was I can't say that I hate it, because I don't really hate it, but it was tough to sit through, and the comedy didn't hit very well. The ending was okay, but it could have been written a little better. It was supposed to be a comedy, I get it, and a goofball thing, and it just didn't work out that way for me. But yeah, it was a rough one to get through, and I love John Carpenter and Dan O'Bannon. I love those guys, but I just I don't know. I'm up in the air about it. I could go either way by the end of the show, I think, but I'm on the fence.
Sounds
right
like
now.
A for effort and what for execution? We'll find
Yeah.
out later. All right, Bill Mulligan, sir. What was your first impression of Dark Star? When did you first see it, and what do you think of it today?
I saw it in college, so I would have seen it probably very early 80s, not too long after it came out. And my my impression is very different. I love this film, but I love it more now than I did when I first saw it. The first time I saw it, I had a lot of what Chad was saying, that I kind of built it up in my mind a bit much, and it is cheap. It's incredibly cheap. It's very talky. It's a student film. It screams student film in every aspect of it. But having watched it again the other day, it's been a while since I had seen it, I was really, really enjoying it. I guess going into it now, knowing how cheap it is, and knowing, like the beach ball sequence does go on for a bit. When you're first watching it, you're just like, when will this be over? And then when you're watching it the second time, it's like, yeah, this is the big long beach ball thing. You just sort of sit back and you kind of admire that they were able to actually fill up that much time with a freaking beach ball, and do little tricks like make it look like the guy is hanging over a ledge when he's actually just on his belly in a hallway, and all those other little bits that they did. They squeezed every dime they could have out of this $60,000 budget. And then it's got some pieces that I just unreservedly love. I love the bomb. The bomb is great. The discussions with the bomb were great. And I remember even the first time I saw it, how much we all like that. And the ending, very profound. Now, part of it is they 100,000% ripped off a Ray Bradbury story, which happens to be one of my favorite Ray Bradbury stories, where these astronauts stranded in space because their ship blew up are just slowly being taken away piece by piece by the asteroids, lopping off an arm, lopping off a leg. And the guy eventually, hits the Earth's atmosphere and burns up, and a little boy on the planet looks up and says, oh, make a wish, there's a shooting star. And this story has been ripped off more than once, because EC Comics actually took that and did a version of it. And Ray Bradbury, who could have probably just sued their ass off, sent them a letter saying, hey guys, that was an awesome adaptation, but you kind of forget to send me my $100 finder's fee or whatever. And they were like, yay, Ray Bradbury threatened to sue us. And they sent him the money, and he became good friends, and they did some other adaptations and all. It's a great little tale. But yeah, this is a great movie to watch with a bunch of people in college. Many of them were stoned. I was not, but I still enjoyed it. I remember it. They don't. And it's got that 70s comedy. I mean, nihilistic, there's no happy ending here.
Oh,
Authority figures
true
are
70s.
idiots,
Yeah.
and yeah. But boy, I really like this film. I really do. And one thing you got to say about it, yeah, it's cheap, and you can criticize all you want, but you can see that the people who made this movie were going places. Because I've watched a lot of student films. People who go to film school and they slap together their final project and everything, and most of them are god awful, and you never hear from these people again because it's just not there. These guys were reaching way further than they could. They were trying to climb a mountain without any hands, and that's the sort of attitude that will, that will eventually. Someone gave them a budget, and we got Alien, we got Starman, we got everything John Carpenter ever did, and some great stuff from Dan O'Bannon. These guys, there was a lot of talent on display here.
Yes, definitely. Jeff Mohr, sir, when did you first see Dark Star, and what was your first impression? And does it matter today?
Yeah, just a couple days ago. The first time I saw it. Same thing, it was like, it's for completists, I think. I'm just going to mimic what Chad and Bill said, only maybe use different words, but it's not a good film, but I think it was a fun film. And I actually watched it second time this afternoon while I was doing some other stuff, and I was getting a kick out of Dan O'Bannon's dialogue, and then just some of the sort of they're really kind of monologues. I mean, when Doolittle's doing his little talk about the surfboards and the just what everybody else talked about, the alien is great. I mean, I love the alien. Every time I look at him, I like him more. And the noise they make, and the little things in the background of this, that you learn about the making. So I had a good time with it, and I'm trying to think. I was going to say something, but it would sound ridiculous. But some of the effects were kind of good. I mean, like their mock-up control room where they were sitting. I kind of thought that alternating seating was kind of smart. They could talk to each other instead of having their heads in a row and not be able to see the other people. So anyway, just little stuff like that. I guess I don't. And it's fun. You could tell on a film like this, if you look through the credits, like Dan O'Bannon did everything.
Yeah.
And everything he didn't do, John Carpenter did.
Yep. Music.
And there are some good special effects guys that went on to big careers. I'm like, wow, this is
Ron Cobb.
Yeah.
Greg Jean. Look at his stuff. He's nominated for a couple Oscars. So anyway, it's fun. I think it's fun. Even the stupid song, you can certainly tell it's John Carpenter's music.
Yeah.
At an early stage of development.
Yeah. It's a little rough around the edges, but still his. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I'm like Chad. I've said, I'll see it eventually. I wanted to, but I just wasn't high on my list. Which is kind of the theme song for this year. It seems like every movie we've done is like, oh, this is the first time I get to see. I enjoyed the hell out of this. It is. I think I admire the craftsmanship, whether or not it's successful or not. I admire the, even if the acting's a little wooden and some of the jokes don't hit, everybody is super into it. You really feel that. You feel that into it. And I thought some of the special effects were I was like, damn, I've seen a lot worse on studio stuff in the 70s, when it comes to space stuff. This predates Star Wars, by how many years? And
I wanted to make sure you didn't include the alien in that.
Well, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there.
It was fun, but it wasn't.
For what they did with the alien, they okay. So they didn't like pretend it wasn't, because it did deflate at the end. So it was kind of like an alien beach ball that actually had a conscience and feet. I love the feet. It's silly at first, but after a while, when it starts like hopping on them or running down the hall or sneaking around a corner, I start getting into it. And that sequence, yeah, it's long, but I love it. Chasing around
when
everything.
It's tickling him, right?
Oh my god! And then, so I don't know. I had a blast with it. I agree with Chad. It's not necessarily a great film.
Yeah,
but it certainly is a great experience, and especially from a student of film perspective, like, either a student of film, like you love the 70s and you just want to learn about it, or if you're actually a student of film, like you're trying to learn how filmmaking. I think, Bill, I would imagine you could relate to a lot of what they had to go through, because you've done so much film work, and you probably, like we were talking on the intro, like it took, they did a couple of years here, a couple of years there.
Their haircuts are different. Like,
we did that together. One film. It took us, a year to do that? Took you guys?
Right.
I was just an extra. But
yeah, you can actually tell, I think, when the one guy shows up with the wig. I think, isn't it the blonde hair guy whose hair was shorter, and all of a sudden he's got a wig with curls instead of.
But so the writing, I agree with Chad. The writing is off and on, but it's actually well-crafted writing. I mean, it brings up a story that plays into the ending like a good story should.
Yeah.
The characters are your individuals. We have a history, and we even get to see the frozen captain guy, and and that was creative, I thought.
That was.
It had a little bit of some of that 2001 HAL kind of aspect to it in some aspects. You can see where the mother from Alien comes from. It's, very buried in this. Of course, Dan O'Bannon originated that too.
The knife thing too.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, they didn't. Oh my God, you're right. They did the knife thing for him, but that was James Cameron.
The captain also had one of what I think is just one of the funniest jokes, one of my favorite jokes of all time, which is when the ship blows up and you see the captain's body spinning away in space, and he's like, "What's happening?" And the guy says, "Yeah, the captain always was lucky." I'm like, "Wow, that's just brilliant." Yeah, luckiest guy on the ship.
The dead captain was lucky. All right, we're going to get into a big discussion about that, but before we do that, Jeff Mohr and Chad, I think we should do. What should we do, Jeff? We should do
taglines with Chad.
Okay, we get it.
Lucky number 3.
Lucky number 3. Good thing, Jeff has that ADHD thing. All right,
I can't push the button. Sorry.
All right, your taglines for Dark Star are as follows, folks. What do you say to a talking bomb? All systems snafu.
That sucks.
Yeah.
They could have left the answer out. It was
Hello. Okay.
I think
what would you be like after 20 years aboard Dark Star, the spaced out spaceship, the ultimate cosmic comedy?
Yeah.
Was that 2 together?
It seemed like
they're just throwing stuff against the wall, see what sticks.
All right, boys, what do you got next for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Bombed out in space with a spaced out bomb.
Ooh, I see what you did there. You kind of flipped it around. Yeah.
I flipped it around. See, first it made sense, and then it didn't make sense.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Oh man, I guess we should start with just a little before we get into all the posters and everything. I kind of want to bring up Jack Harris, who basically picked up this film. He did this a lot and distributed it because he didn't do Equinox.
He did Equinox.
And some others like that. We probably, yeah, he did. We've been, the Blob is one of his big ones. That
4D Man, Dinosaurus, one of my favorites.
there you go.
Yeah,
Dinosaur.
Schlock. Which
So John Landis,
Yeah.
early John Landis, early all the folks who worked on Equinox, who later went on to do Academy Award winning stuff. These guys, yeah, he had an eye for talent. They may have not liked him by the time it was over and he got his fingers in the pie, but
and then boom, right in the middle of that is Eyes of Laura Mars.
Yeah, I know, which is probably
Which John Carpenter wrote.
Did he?
That's right.
Yes,
he did.
Right. I forgot about
This is
that.
true.
Very good, Chad. So I just wanted to bring that out, but of course, this is a student film that was picked up like that. So let's get into it. Let's look at the poster they made for it, A Spaced Out Odyssey, Mission of the Strangelove Generation. Well, there you go.
So they're just seeing what whoever did this poster must have been a huge Kubrick fan.
Yeah, because it got 2001 Space Odyssey and Strangelove.
And Dr. Strangelove, yeah.
And to be fair, it's probably got a little bit of each of it in there. I mean, if you think about the ending is kind of in Strangelove, and then the the whole talking stuff is very Hal.
Or if you're expecting a high-tech, sharp-edged Kubrick type film and you go see this grimy little grub,
it's kind of
a little deceptive.
And there's the captain stuck in the middle of the poster.
Yeah.
Somehow
I didn't get that. How
still
is he
spiritually conscious or something?
Is that what it was? It was just
I don't know.
Yeah, they froze him.
They were telling everybody he was dead, and then
They were all
not
doing
dead.
shrooms, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the chicken.
Well, that's very much like a Philip K. Dick kind of thing. I mean, you're dead, your heart's stopped and everything, but your brain is still operating at a slower pace, and you can,
just keep it alive.
Yeah,
by freezing it, right? So.
Give it 10 years, and this will be AI. I'll be gone, but there'll be some program. You can just stick him in the corner there, and he'll still be, going off on random tangents, just like the real me.
And it was rated G, of course. That resulted. Is that what resulted in all the Playboy stuff being blurred out, or was it because
he insisted that they blur everything out so that they could keep the G rating, which I also think is death to a film like this.
Hello?
Was that Jack? Was that
you don't
Jack
say.
Harris? Jack
You don't
Harris?
say. You don't say. Who was it? He didn't say.
I'm trying to use a phone.
Oh my God, guys! Was that Jack Harris that said that?
Yeah, that's right. From the dead, calling back.
Okay.
Don't forget the 4D Man. I didn't forget the 4D Man, Jack. It's one of my favorites.
It's a fun movie.
Oh man, you goobers! All right, let's talk about John Carpenter. Well, what do we need to say that we haven't already said?
Look at all those films. Jeez.
I love that you have Elvis stuck in the middle. That's a great thing to throw at somebody who loves Elvis movies. And I said, did you know that Kurt Russell played Elvis? And they don't remember that he played Elvis. And it was
directed
a lot
by
of fun.
John Carpenter.
And did you know that
TV movie? Yeah.
Did you know that John Russell's dad, or Kurt Russell's dad, played Elvis's dad in the movie?
I did not know that.
I know.
I just found all this stuff out yesterday. Bing Russell was he was a deputy on Bonanza, I think, for like 13 years, and then he owned a minor league baseball team in Portland in the 70s.
That's a hell of a life right there.
It's actually legendary. This team is legendary. But anyways, that's my side. Squirrel.
Yeah. Squirrel. Assault on Precinct 13. That movie was a blast.
I mean, you got to say, there's few genre creators out there who have a better resume than John Carpenter. Even some of his lesser films, or even some of the unsuccessful ones, are like top notch. Would have been something to be proud of.
I mean, his films are so influential. I mean, between The Thing and Halloween alone is enough to make anybody's career. But there are so many other films, and I love The Fog. Big Trouble in Little China is one of my favorite films.
But then you also look at how influential is a person. How many ripoffs were there? Even something like Escape from New York begat like an entire subgenre of Italian action movies that tried to do that premise, and it never successfully, of course. But
So I guess the question I'm going to pose to you guys is, how much of John Carpenter's signature style did you catch in this film?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got it. Like if John Carpenter had no money, this is sort of what you'd get. It doesn't look like a Carpenter film, though. It's not in that.
It's missing that Dean Cundy
Yeah.
photography.
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it.
It's missing the Panavision. It's
Yeah.
you know, but there's a vibe to it that.
Yeah, there is something there. I felt that something of his in it.
Well, the music helps.
The music helps.
Definitely hears
The music. Yeah. Some of the writing, reminded me of him. So yeah, it did kind of remind me of Carpenter.
I thought there was some interesting angles on some of the shots, plus just the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ship and the thing on it. I mean, that's not necessarily him. I'm sure he had a part in it, but there was some interesting thing, like that guy that sat on the top.
Yes, yeah. I like that. The way he was so distant from everybody.
Yeah.
The ending of the film too is a very Carpenter-esque. When you look at these films here, you think of the endings of some of them.
Yeah.
You don't get your traditional Hollywood happy ending.
No.
Well, I don't know. He got to ride his surfboard into oblivion. I mean,
yeah.
I guess
that was cool.
He would repeat the surfboard thing later on in another
Escape from LA.
LA, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as spacebound. But, all right, Dan O'Bannon is another name we should mention. He was responsible for, he wrote Alien. That's not listed on here, but But of course, that got
supposed to be, but it didn't get on. Alien, the obvious. I think I put that under influences too. But Dan O'Bannon wrote arguably the second or third most influential zombie movie ever. Yeah. Because when people do zombies, say do a zombie, brains. Okay, totally Return of the Living Dead, and only Return of the Living Dead. No. Romero never had him walking around talking about brains and everything. That was strictly
or running,
and
Yep, and that's totally from that. Now they ate brains, but they didn't actually say they wanted to. And of course, they would talk and say Sanmar paramedics. Dead and
which
Buried,
was hilarious, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dead and Buried is a
weird.
I think it's a great film that many people don't know about.
I feel the same way.
Very underrated.
I feel the same about Invaders from Mars. I know not a lot of people really dug that film when it came out, but I kind of liked it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as remakes go.
Well, Total Recall too. He didn't have one.
Yeah,
that's
right.
And yes, Life Force had its own issues, but
there's too many.
What did they're all memorable. I mean, Life Force is a train wreck, but who doesn't love a train wreck?
Yeah. Visually,
yeah. I mean, come on. If someone said, "Hey, there's going to be a train wreck tomorrow at 5," I'm sitting there with my lawn chair.
That's why a lot of people love it, because it is a train wreck. And it's just everything but the kitchen sink in there.
And he did outside of the genre. He did Blue Thunder.
Yeah.
He's made some money with that one.
Oh, I didn't know. Wrote Screamers, and then I haven't. Have you guys? Anybody seen Bleeders?
I've never seen. I don't think
so.
And he did direct. He directed Return of the Living Dead, and he directed The Resurrected, which I'm trying to remember if I.
That was the guy that played in. It's an H.P. Lovecraft, I think.
Oh,
guy that was in. Chris Sarandon played.
Chris Sarandon, or Sarandon?
Sarandon, yeah.
Okay.
I wonder why he didn't direct more. I mean, Return of the Living Dead was a home run.
And he never really returned to it, right? So
I think a lot of people, everyone thinks being a director is the greatest thing ever, but actually doing it's a lot of pressure. And if things succeed, everyone takes credit for various reasons, and if it fails, it's 100,000% your fault.
Yep.
Well, I think that's what happened. He, from some of the interviews I've seen with him, he became really disheartened at the way the studios just shut him out after a failure or two, which is a shame, because he was very talented and very you know, like these movies here, he made a lot of memorable films.
Yeah.
But he was very bitter too. It seemed like.
Yeah, I was
I
seeing
did
some
get that
interviews. There was some animosity in there
Yeah.
somewhere. For some, well, we'll get to that. Let's
Strawberries.
I was looking at influences, and there was another one that got left out here. The band Pinback.
Oh,
is,
yeah.
Oh
big fans.
wow! I
Yeah.
didn't think about that. But Alien, of course,
Right.
there's elements of that.
Yeah.
I think mostly with the mother part of it and the ship itself.
Mm-hmm.
And Red Dwarf. I don't know if you guys are into Red Dwarf.
I've seen some of the episodes.
It's a long-running British show. It's one of those ones you need to watch from the beginning. It's been on TV in Britain for 50 years, so there's only 14 episodes. But it's a really funny show.
It is. Yeah.
And I kind of see where the influence of Dark Star is in there. Taken to even more absurdist heights and everything. But yeah, it's a great show actually.
All right,
they keep trying to make a movie, and they for some reason they cannot succeed making either a Red Dwarf movie or a Red Dwarf American version.
Mm-hmm.
They've tried and they've sucked. So.
Well, there's the rest of our cast. Basically, it's a four-hander. Is that the way you would say it, Bill? Instead of a two-hander, it's a four-hander. Lieutenant Doolittle, Boiler, Talby, and Pinback.
I like how they did capture the claustrophobia, and yeah, I'd go nuts if I had to spend 20 years in this tin can with these people, and it is a weird existence that you're in space. You're there exposed to the absolute enormity of the universe, and you conversely are trapped in this tiny little tuna can, cramped in with having to smell and taste and look and see the same things all the time. You'd go crazy.
Yeah.
You'd go absolutely buggers.
And I think they did at some point.
I think they were buggers by the time we got there.
Especially Talby up in the dome there.
Yeah, doing the Grogu thing up there.
Apparently his accent was so thick that John Carpenter dubbed all his lines.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Okay. Yeah, he always looked really stoned too. His eyes are almost closed. I was like, that guy's stoned as hell.
Don't you think you would be though? I mean, if you ever go out like in the desert where there's no lights or anything, you actually can see the Milky Way. You see the milkiness of the Milky Way. The stars are absolutely unbelievable. You feel like you're on drugs, even though hopefully you're not. Imagine seeing that all the time, and then imagine getting bored with that. Yeah, that's when my brain would just snap like that, when you're seeing the greatest thing that any person could see, and after a while it's just meh.
Yeah, but he was the only one that wasn't bored with it because he still loved it.
Right, he was still one with the universe.
Yeah. And Jeff, you mentioned it, the way they had the very tight setup. It actually cinematically it works really well. And I thought that the computer stuff, all the it actually works. Well, you still got the little metal light switches that turn everything on and off, but a lot of the buttons, they and the screens, that the alerts and stuff. I was like, that's not actually too bad.
Did you notice how his Pinback's audio diary was a 8-track tape?
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't see that. That's awesome. I love the history. I love the history of this because he's actually not Pinback, right? He's somebody else.
Yeah, is it
Bill something? His name is Bill something.
One of their professors, I guess.
I thought it was hilarious, and now he is. But when it gets all crazy and they have to try to get the thing to launch, and they're all trying, drop. There are some elements, Chad, that actually do land.
Yeah, I will admit that there's a few things. The one thing that made me bust out laughing so loud was when Talby flew out, busted out of the airlock, and flew past the captain,
Yeah.
and he goes "Woo-hoo-hoo-wee," or something like that as he flies by. And yeah, that was funny. That was
What
funny.
else do you say when you're hired a kite and you get blasted out the
Yeah. Do a little goofy thing. But you know, and I don't know, by the end of it, I felt like I knew who these guys were. So I think the script handled that and the cast as well. Of course, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm trying to figure out how Nick Castle did the alien. Did he just make all those
Probably
weird
the
noises?
hands.
Oh,
Maybe-
the hands.
maybe
Yeah,
the
probably
hands
the
and the-
hands.
yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
I know it's obviously a beach ball and it's kind of corny, but it has a charm and it's actually works, and they play on it. You know, it deflates like a beach ball would. So
Yeah.
Which was funny too.
Which was funny too.
Yeah.
It squeaks and squawks and has the little claws that tickle.
Mhm.
I at first I knew about it, right? Because obviously that's the thing I think most of us probably know about going into John Carpenter film, and they have a beach ball as an alien, so you know it's coming, and you go, oops, that's goofy. But then after a few minutes, it's kind of like, well, this is actually working. That's really weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so simple, right?
It sort of fits with the tone of the rest of the movie.
You kind of have to admire the one, no pun intended, the balls of doing it, and two, just the simplicity of it.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
I love that shot in the middle. I mean, that's a cool shot for that low budget of a movie. I think it's the elevator had no chance of actually being an elevator, but it was still fun to
watch.
What the
hell was it elevating? I mean,
who was riding it back and forth the whole time? There was the other two guys were in the kitchen.
I did love how it got right up on his face and then went.
Yeah. Push him down. That was great.
But he's got some good upper arm strength. I was like, man, I've been falling a long time ago.
Yeah,
good for you, guy.
But he gets stuck in the floor, and
his fat ass gets stuck in the hole. I mean, you got to admire it, right? You got to admire it. And then the other thing is the bomb itself, which you got. Okay, look at that. That's actually really good special effects especially given that it's a low a student film, $30,000, right? That was really good.
That looks like a Ron Cobb special right there.
Back in the day, that was a big thing. If you wanted to make special effects space movies and everything, you bought a whole bunch of Aurora models and just cannibalized them.
Yep.
And using the pieces and gluing them on and then painting it, and you could get if you're good at that kind of thing, you got all kinds of good stuff. And this was a truck. This was apparently a model truck that they tricked up and put all kinds of cool stuff on. And it looks good. It looks good because it's real. It is real. It may not actually be the size that it's being portrayed, but it is an actual thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll always argue that practical effects do have their place.
Well, because you got the lighting, you got the physical lighting on it that they did really well. And the background, is just stars, so it's simple to do.
Yeah. And one of the other things they did was Talby, when he was trying to fix the laser, the front of his suit had a muffin tin.
Yeah. I think it's spray painted silver or something.
Yeah.
Or white.
Now, I love it when you catch stuff like that. That like there's a Roger Corman movie that James Cameron worked on before he was James Cameron. He was just Jimmy Cameron, the special effects guy. And he apparently went to a McDonald's or Burger King and got a bunch of the Happy Meal styrofoam containers and just put them on the walls and painted them silver. And once you know it, it's obvious. But when you're not paying attention, it's like, yeah, that looks like the inside of a spaceship. Why not?
That's like Phantasm. It's all wallpaper. And if you don't know, it looks like marble, right? But if you know, you can start seeing the patterns going down the hallway. It's like, oh no! Now I've ruined Phantasm for all our listeners. But anyway, it looks and feels great, but it also had a personality.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, Bill.
I love the bomb. The scene where he's talking to the bomb. I remember seeing it in college, and we were laughing because this is the sort of stupid conversations that we were having with each other. Thinking, oh, we're the first people ever to imagine, these sort of things that every college student has ever thought of, and just arguing, what's real. If you always got that one guy who's like, well, how do you know it's real? How do you know I'm even talking to you right now? Like, it's just your perception. And you punch him in the nose and he starts crying. It's like, that felt pretty real. But yeah, it was great. And I really do think the last 10 minutes of this movie is great, because from the point where the bomb starts doing its monologue, and just and there was a void, and there was also me, and the guys are like, bomb, and when it says, the whole "let there be light" and the silent explosion, which it would be, and everything from that point on, everything is just like really, I'm with the movie at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The guy going into the Phoenix asteroids, the punchline.
I want to talk about that. Yeah. I want to talk about both the punchlines, but I want to talk about the personality, because when he goes, of course, they do the rule of threes, right, Bill? They do the rule of threes. He gets dropped down 3 times mistakenly. We do see it once working properly at the beginning, so we know that informs us what it's all about. Then this is bomb number 20, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when it says, no, I've been told to do this, I got to do it now. And of course, Mother, I'm going to call it Mother, I don't forget what it's called, tells them to come up. Yeah. But she can't the last time, and they can't either, and they won't drop either. So
he's like, okay, I'm not coming out again.
Yeah.
All right, that's the last time.
Just the idea that a bomb would see as its purpose is to explode. That's its meaning. That's that this artificial intelligence would see meaning. Its only meaning is its own destruction. That's its purpose to exist. That's really cool.
I don't know if I would program a bomb with the ability to have an existential crisis.
No, that's a huge.
That's a flaw in the zeros and the ones there, Chad.
And you see that in a movie, and you think to yourself, well, who would be stupid enough to do that? And as we speak, there are people playing with artificial intelligence, like, hey, I'm going to ask this artificial intelligence to try to come up with a way to destroy the human race just for giggles. Let's just see where it goes. And that's, so yeah, exactly. That's how it's all going to end.
Yeah, that's a frightening discussion in and of itself. Let's put that aside, please.
So that whole existential discussion, that reminded me of my intro to philosophy class back in
school, definitely.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
And it reminded me of the song by The Who called "Who Are You?"
Shut up.
And it's
all right, so let's talk about the ending with the 2 guys. I forget who. It's not. Which one is it? It's the guy in the top, and then the guy
Talby and the captain.
Talby and Doolittle.
So Doolittle, Talby and Doolittle. So one of them, it gets sucked out the airlock and is going, and the other guy puts on the jetpack to go get him, right? The little. Mm-hmm. And then while they're out there, the ship blows up. Now, we've heard this story between the 2. We get this long monologue or conversation between the 2, because it's like a pair of monologue. One of them's telling about the Phoenix asteroid. Yeah. And says it's like the most amazing thing. I've heard all about it. I can't wait to see it. We're going to get past it. It's like 1 billion years it comes around, or something like that. And then the other thing is like the thing he missed the most was surfboarding. He wished he had the surfboard just so he could wax it a couple times a day. All right. That sounded weird. But what's great about that, Bill, and I think this is, and you back me up or tell me I'm wrong, that's the key to good writing, is that those stories come back at the end and play out and pays out.
Yeah.
The one guy, of course, the explosion separates them. One goes out to space and one goes toward the planet, and the one out in space gets caught by the Phoenix.
Right.
Asteroids, and gets sucked in, and he glows just like it does. So he's like, it's a perfect ending for him. You say it's a downbeat ending, but actually for him, it's the perfect ending. It's as good an ending as the bomb.
I mean,
for Doolittle, it was a a ending. Is he got to surf one more time?
Yeah, so he catches like this one big piece of shrapnel, right?
That's definitely the Dr. Strangelove scene.
The bomb,
riding a bomb down.
Whoa!
Yeah.
He wasn't on the bomb, but anyway.
No, he wasn't on the bomb. He was on the surfboard like it was a bomb. But
No, that's as cheery an ending as you're going to get from a movie like this.
it is downbeat, but yet at the same time, the character is kind of living out.
Yeah. All true stories end in death. So, but yeah, and yet you're absolutely right. It's good writing because there would have been no point to that whole monologue about the Phoenix asteroids if at the end we didn't like, oh, that's right, that's what he was talking about. And of course, once you realize that, you watch movies, and when somebody goes into some seemingly irrelevant aside, there had better be a payoff. So you're kind of waiting for it. I mean, I always say, if you watch a movie, if in the first 15 minutes somebody mentions bears in the woods, I guarantee that by the end of the movie, a bear is going to come loping out of the woods and scare
or some joke or some gag on it, right? It's got to be and comedians do this too. If you go see a comedian somewhere in the beginning of their show, they'll bring up a thing and belabor on it a little bit, and then they'll end with that exact. They'll bring it right back up, and you'll go, "Oh, that was great!" And you walk out all happy. It's just good writing.
But Doc, how many times have you seen a movie where something gets brought up and you're like, okay, I'm going to file that away in my little Rolodex of memory. Yep. And then when the movie's over, and you're like, what the hell was that all about? And I'm thinking editing. They edited it for time, and they left in the setup and took out the punchline, which
the creators know, but a lot of times when it gets edited more on the production side, the production side instead of the creative side, those things don't get caught. Right. And people get upset, and then that's when you get director's cuts and shit like that.
That's right.
But imagine what the ending would be like if we didn't have that follow-up. If we had that story, but then they just all blew up. Yeah. The film wouldn't have the same effect. I mean,
I agree.
Oh yeah.
Without that, I think the film might even fall apart.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. I think the ending is critical to the popularity, the cult that this film has around it.
Chad, you changed your mind a little bit?
There's I don't know if I'll ever go back and watch it again.
No, wait 20 years.
Yeah, it was, like I said, I can't say that I hate this movie. I don't. Or maybe I did build it up a little bit too much of what I thought it was going to be. And then it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. For all these years, I sort of avoided it. But it was fun to watch, and it was. I did enjoy the writing quite a bit, I have to say, even though some of the delivery of the lines was not that great. But it made sense. Like we talked about it, everything paid off in the end, and that was a cool thing too. Like Bill said, the last 10 minutes was just perfect. The perfect ending for the movie. So, but I
think part of it, Chad, if you go into seeing an unseen John Carpenter film, you're going in with all the John Carpenter stuff. It'd be like, oh, look, I have a tape of young Jimi Hendrix picking up a guitar for the first time, and you're like, oh wow. And then he's gonna it's gonna sound like El Kabong because he doesn't know how to play. It's the first time he ever picked up a guitar. It's unfair to expect him to do all along the Watchtower when he's 5 years old. Yeah. So, I know Spielberg has his first movie like under lock and key that no one will ever see it. And people have desperately wanted to see it. But I know exactly what he's thinking. It's like, this is me making my first movie. And
that's not the one when he was a kid, or is there?
I think there is. I think there was like, was it Keep Watching the Skies or something? I think it was like a UFO movie.
Well, I just,
maybe I'm wrong.
We're getting off track a bit, but I just binged the Columbo series, and he directed like episode 1 of Columbo, which would have been right around the time of Duel, probably.
Yeah, because what was the Night Gallery? He did
the Joan Collins Night Gallery.
That is remarkable. That whole anthology movie is remarkable, but his really stands out.
I just watched Duel a couple of nights ago, and it's just awesome
still
movie.
Holds up. Yeah,
it's on our to-do list, that's for sure. What else do we want to bring up before we wrap this up? I'm trying to
guess there's a few versions of this because they released a director's cut that was actually shorter. They cut out some of the. Because so they made their film and it was short, and then they were told, "Well, this is great. You got to beef it up." So they beefed it up, and then Jack Harris saw it and said, "I really like this, but some of the stuff you put in there is kind of boring." So he cut out like a half an hour, but then it was too short again, so they had to add some more stuff. They added all the alien stuff and everything. So there's conceivably like 3 or 4 different versions of this film, and I guess at some point, O'Bannon and Carpenter got together and came up with their favorite version of it. So I don't know if I've ever seen that one or not.
Well, did you see that Tommy Lee Wallace was listed as a credit in the art department?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that too.
Associate art director.
But I think he was called Tom Wallace.
Yeah, Bill
Wallace.
does Tom Wallace. Yeah.
Sir Thomas Wallace.
I didn't notice that there's a reference to George Lucas in the film. I don't know if you guys caught it. I'm reading it, so I didn't catch it. But there's a toilet tank THX 1138,
Wow.
Yeah.
which of course was his student film. A version of it, right? I think. But
we talked a little bit about the spacesuits, but they were bad. I mean,
but the funniest
the little
way,
shoulder piece didn't even fit.
No, it was for kids.
And it made your head kind of go, you know.
Yeah, the little,
He had to look over the top like this.
Yeah.
Little pimple-headed things looking at. Yeah, they were kind of lame, but at the same time, it's part of the charm, right? Because it also kind of illustrates what made Star Wars so good, because it's grimy, right? It's not clean. It's not almost,
lived in. It looks lived in.
Right, lived in. Right. I mean, they even spray painted this guy's name on the wall, right?
The big boiler.
I'm not quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
Go ahead.
I'm not quick enough to catch this, but according to some of the info, when Pinback or Dan O'Bannon is laying there and there's a magazine across his chest and it says The Man Book, the cover illustration is Basil Gogos.
Really?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I didn't.
They do have
all I was doing was trying to figure out what's the Man Book. I can't remember what that is.
I think the Man Book was probably, because that looked like to me a pulp cover.
Right.
With maybe the title changed or something.
Yeah, weasels rip my flesh kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the movie takes place, Chad, as the comic book artist in here. Sorry, as the comic book artist in here, the movie takes place in 2150, but they have a comic book from DC from 1970. Did you catch that?
Caught that. Falling in Love. Yeah,
that was great.
Because he took care of his comics. He put it in a Mylar bag with a cardboard backing. Yeah.
That lasted to 2150, so that's kind of awesome. How's your collection going to be in 2150, Chad?
Probably sold or used for firewood. Help people survive.
It'll be CGC grade 1.2.
Yeah. Or buried alongside you in your tomb.
That's right.
People are going to try to break into it to get your collection out.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that the original film, the student film, had included the first bomb drop, Talby in the dome, speaking with Doolittle, Talby fixing the communications laser, the crew mess hall scenes, and the second bomb drop. Also all scenes shot in the cramped bridge. So all the alien stuff was added, right?
Yeah, that was the big addition when Harris started producing it.
Yeah. And that's probably why it's so long. That's filler to make it into an hour and a half film, a 90-minute film. But it's I don't know.
It is episodic, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of love that sequence. It
was fun. It was cute and funny and mischievous. That little monster was.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it.
I did feel bad when he died.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I understand where the guy's coming from.
That was one of the funniest things, and it was great shots too of him flying around like a real balloon would do.
Right.
The poor alien was just as bored as they were. I mean,
he turned into a pet. He didn't want to be a pet. Locked in a room. He chased down by a broom.
Yeah,
he might have been an apex predator on his world, and now he's just a pet.
Yeah.
or a giant. He could have been a giant
That's the
kaiju
thing.
on his planet.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
kaiju. He's the Godzilla of his planet.
Yeah, one day
Uh,
they wake up and they find the skin of the beach ball and like, what happened? It's like, oh, he just assumed his, true form, and now it's Mother Alien.
He later starred in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yes, he did. Yes, up on a helicopter. All right, let's wrap this up. We got a lot of feedback, so I want to make sure we have
Oh,
time
boy.
for that. Where did we watch this? I watched it on Tubi.
Tubi.
Yeah, and it's actually
YouTube. I saw it.
YouTube. It's a fairly good copy.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't
Yeah,
have
it
any
is.
trouble with it.
It is.
Tubi's great for getting like really nice copies of stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly, there's a couple of
True.
If they exist, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we all recommend, especially if you're a student of film, either just like I said earlier from the 70s or an actual like Bill Mulligan student of film.
Yeah.
You should catch this if you're a fan of John Carpenter and you want to be like Chad Hunt and get all the Carpenter under your belt. You got to do it.
And if you're making movies, here's the dream come true. You make your short film and somebody sees it and says, by gosh, that's brilliant. Make it longer. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Just like that. Just like Mickey Mouse. Yes, sir. I don't know. Does anybody want to say
Here's
anything
$60,000. Go make a movie.
Yeah.
Take it.
I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I got it under my belt, like Doc said. It was fun to watch. It so yeah, and after hearing you guys' comments on it and everything, it's not as bad as I originally thought.
We're infectious.
Yeah. So,
a good discussion on a film really helps. I mean,
yeah,
that's
it
what I
does.
was talking
It
about
does.
too.
because when I'm alone by myself watching it, I'm down on everything.
Yeah.
I'm going, that's stupid. I'm a snob, by myself. But yeah,
Jeff,
it was fun.
Jeff, you had something?
No, I'm just going to say the same thing Chad did. It's worth a watch. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Don't be expecting John Carpenter, but expect to see it's a little bit like Equinox in that you can see a bunch of people getting their feet under them in filmmaking.
Yeah, and just having fun.
Yeah, and I think you'll find charm. I think you'll find the mischievousness of it. It is infectious, and I think you can see why it has a cult following. And it's more than just Carpenter. It's the film itself deserves a cult following. Bill, anything else?
Yes. Oh no, I think that says it all. Yeah. I really do like this film.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gone the whole gamut, right? Or last almost 50 years, student film to studio release, or produced theatrical release, to not very good, bad reviews, to cult
following. Yeah. So check it out. Leave some comments down below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what you have to say about it.
I realize the math checks out, but every time we review a movie and we mention, if it's 50 years old now, it's like,
I know.
Yeah.
It is like a knife to the chest. Jeff, I believe we have some feedback.
We do. We got some great feedback, and I don't know. Bill, you up to reading something, or should I read
Sure.
it?
No, I'll do it. I'll hack my way through.
Who picked the Ghoul?
Yeah. All right.
So we got one on the Ghoul from Cult Horror Movies, which I think
Cult Horror Movies. Wow.
Cult
Horror Movies, talking about Cult Horror Movies. This one is a great find. Cushing's finest performance. The movies from the companies around Hammer are often better than the Hammer movies themselves. People, often Americans, are disappointed when seeing many horror movies from the 1970s. They want the movie to be logical, realistic, be able to identify with the main character. Why? This not hanging together is one of the best things about this movies and several others from this time. And there are lots of things going on, but not what you expect. And the Ghoul is tragic, not horrifying. That's the point. Father, kill me.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you. Cult Horror Movies. Thank you.
I don't think we were we part of the Americans who were disappointed in it. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
We wanted to see more of the creature.
We did want more Ghoul in our movie called The Ghoul. It's reasonable.
All right. The next one is on episode 183, Pigs. And that was Chad's pick. We'll take that one, Chad.
All right. Cult Horror Movies says, this is a weird and unsettling movie. It's not what most slasher fans would think it would be. I don't think the fans of 80s onward slasher movies have much to find in horror movies from this era. Like Blood Rage 1979 is not Blood Rage 1987. True. Also, he says The Witch Who Came from the Sea is kind of similar in tone.
That one gets brought up a lot by our viewers.
Yeah, he gives us a YouTube link too. I did look it's from 1976, and the tagline is "Molly really knows how to cut men down to size."
Well, there you go. That is an accurate tagline for
I
once.
think it's on Shudder too.
Yeah.
Oh, you think?
I'm not
And holding a head with a scythe in the poster.
Yeah, that's not what she cuts, but okay, we'll go with that.
All right. So let's see. Then we also, this one would be Doc's from episode 184, Love at First Bite.
Love at First Bite. This is Gregory Crosby says, amazed that you got through this episode without once quoting a line that I repeated for months on end in the 7th grade. I do not drink wine. I do not smoke shit.
That was a line.
Yeah.
We almost used that as the quote, Gregory, but we held off. All right. Episode 185, Death Race 2000. Just from Ralph Miller. Such a crazy thrill ride of a movie. And how about that Mary Warrenov? Hubba hubba.
Ralph speaks wisdom.
You can always count on Ralph for some insightful comments here.
Yeah.
And Mikey Z says, I forgot to say, Stallone was once mugged by Jack Lemmon in the 1972 film Neil Simon penned film based on his stage play Prisoner of Second Avenue. I
remember reading that. Yeah, I remember reading about that.
And then Chad White, great movie. You definitely need to shut your brain off and just enjoy the mayhem. The reboot and its sequels were decent, but not great. Roger Corman actually produced a direct sequel in 2017 called Death Race 2050. It's got Malcolm McDowell in it, and it's pretty ridiculous, but still enjoyable. I like this guy. He gets it's ridiculous, but enjoyable. Great show, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chad. And finally, Gregory Crosby again. Now, just to refresh your memories, Gregory Crosby was the big long one we read on all 3 decades of horror.
Gotcha.
This is pretty good. Another excellent and amusing episode, although it needed more George Clooney.
Doesn't everything?
I was just looking at Bill's face. Death Race 2000 remains one of the absolute highlights of David Carradine's career, and I'm inspired to revisit it now, having last viewed it on VHS sometime in the late 80s. When Carradine passed away, I wrote a poem in his honor, which can be found in my second book, Said No One Ever, in 2021. He said in a nakedly shameless plug. Yeah, no problems with plugs.
Yes. I'm going to be just like you, man.
I'm also nonplussed that you read that long missive 3 separate times, but I'm pleased that Chad finally heard it, because otherwise the disembodied hand spell doesn't work. And so I looked him up, and just in case anybody's interested. So he talked about a book of poetry called Said No One Ever. He also has one called Walking Away from Explosions in Slow Motion. And
that's a great title.
I like that. Yeah.
A couple of chapbooks, Spooky Action at a Distance, and The Book of 13. So all I did was put his name into Amazon.
Look at that.
And some of those are Kindle, so you could read a couple of the poems, and it's interesting. I think a lot of them are not obviously, but people that are fanatics of films. A lot of them are film related.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain to our listeners what a chapbook is?
A chapbook is like a small, almost like a pamphlet, but like it's saddle stapled usually. And just a few pages and kind of pint sized.
Pint sized. I love that description. Yeah. Pint sized.
Oh, good for you, Gregory, because poets get all the chicks.
They do.
Yeah.
especially if they know how to play a guitar and sing "My
Yeah.
love's a bowl of cherries" or whatever.
Yeah, I gave my love a cherry that had no stone. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Right.
Smash that guitar. Smash it.
Yeah.
All right.
What if you're a poet and don't know it? I tell you.
Yeah.
You're gonna be alone.
I get no respect. All right. Guys, killing me. Please leave your comments. We love these comments. Thank you all so much. Jeff, I know the answer to this, but let's share that. What do we know what our next film is?
Well, some guy named Doc picked this film,
Uh-oh.
The Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Hammer time.
1974. Yeah. We just did a Hammer film on Classic Era, so we're getting
Wow.
into the Hammer.
Yeah,
vibe
you
here,
did.
yeah.
You did an early squirrely one.
Yeah,
getting
X the
hammered.
Unknown. Oh, it's an early
Ex the
good
Unknown,
one.
yeah. Very good movie, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's on. You can catch this right now on Roku, Tubi, Screenbox, and Popcorn Flicks.
And just about everywhere else.
Yeah.
It's available all over the place on pay-per-view, but
Slipped into the public domain. You
And then
you
we're
too
gonna-
can release a copy.
We're going to run right into the sequel to this one called The Scatological Rites of Dracula.
Ooh.
It's shitty.
We should do
Yeah.
the Satanic Panic Race.
I think Jess Franco directed that one.
No, it was his cousin Joe. No.
Joe Franco.
Joe Franklin.
guys, you guys.
I'm looking forward to it. I've
Oh,
seen
yeah,
it.
come on, it's
We've
got
we've
Cushing.
talked about this a lot
Yes.
over the last.
Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, take my money.
It has one of the great. This is weird, but bear with me. There's a pun in that. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. It has one of the great "let's stab a chick with a bare boob" shots ever in film.
Oh, do you collect those?
No.
Well,
No.
you
No,
know,
why
It's a
would I
whole
do that?
subgenre.
we
Why would I
had
do
a
that?
comment.
Oh.
We had a comment. I forget who that was from about Doc's boob trilogy. I can't remember what it was.
The Boob Trilogy. That's interesting because they usually come in twos, but
Well, you haven't been watching the movies I watch. All right, guys. Looking forward to going back to we still have a few in the 70s to do.
Oh, we got a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah. Looking forward to tackling them over time. But it's time to do this. Bill, we talked about this on the pre-show. Do you remember what it was? What is the alternate title for this that got released in the States under?
Dracula and His Vampire Brides.
That's right. Count Dracula and His Vampire Bride. It had a great poster that did not have anything to do with anything. All right. That's it. Chad, Bill, Jeff, thank you for joining me. As always, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It sure was.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Let's say goodnight.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody.